Good late evening, New Life. Sorry, it's a little late this week getting this pre-worship video out to you guys, but we still wanted to get this out hopefully before tomorrow morning or maybe sometime next week. You'll watch this and kind of go a little bit deeper into our set. So this week we're trying to build on last week and the previous couple of weeks of how do we know where God is leading us? How do we know where he's leading us if we're not spending time with him? So this week we kind of wanted to look into the idea of spending time with God, and that kind of led me into Psalms 46, and then we'll get a little bit deeper into Genesis 11, 1 through 9. So we're going to start with Psalm 46:10, which is our verse for our set this week. It says, "Cease striving and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations, and I will be exalted in the earth." Now, it's kind of interesting. The NASB kind of brought a new life to this verse because most people know this verse as "Be still and know I am God." And kind of a new thought to me of the cease striving. Stop trying to be everything and allow God to be God. So if we are to be still and to cease striving, to stop trying to accomplish things that we want to accomplish on our own. I've been listening to a few podcasts recently of kind of different Bible stories and things, and one of those stories was the Tower of Babel. Um, and Psalm 46 really got me thinking about the Tower of Babel, and this line of thinking is all of Psalm 46 is about relying on God to go before us, not relying on ourselves, but to be still, to stop striving, to know God has got whatever it is that you were trying to do. He's already accomplished that, kind of going the stream of last week of God has overcome these things before us. And Genesis 11, 1 through 9, and the Tower of Babel, kind of rethinking that story. Like, I hadn't thought of the Tower of Babel probably since VBS or elementary school, and Sunday school. And I still kind of had that mindset of being a child when you hear that first story and you think, and we'll get a little bit more into thoughts here in a minute, but you kind of have that basic understanding of this story that you kind of think of as a children's story, but there's a little more to it. But Genesis 11, 1 through 9, now the whole earth used the same language and the same words, and it came about as they journeyed east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. And he said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name, otherwise we will be scattered abroad or over the whole face of the earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have the same language. And this is what they have begun to do. And now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, so they will not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building. I can tell this slide grown up thinking, because when I first thought about that in VBS and as a child, you kind of think, oh, well, God was kind of threatened by people being able to work together, and if we work together, somehow that would threaten God, which, you grow up, you realize that's kind of a silly way to think of things, right? We're no threat to God whatsoever, but thinking about it more recently and actually diving into the story and thinking of it outside of, just being a kid's story that you kind of gloss over and a rudimentary explaining of how language is developed and how different peoples and cultures developed, and diving down into it, God wasn't threatened by us, which, like I said, would be silly. God knew that if we did what we would consider great things, we would fall into a trap of thinking we could do anything ourselves and that we don't need God. And how many times in our lives do we accomplish something great, or do we have things going and we feel really great about our lives, and we get full of ourselves and we kind of forget about God? It's easy to turn back to God. I don't want to say necessarily easy, but sometimes it's easier to recognize God when you need God, when things are hard and things are tough. But when things are going well, you still need God. God is still needs to be ever prevalent in your life, but we tend to think that we're doing these great things. We've got it controlled. And that goes back to our Psalm 46 verse of be still and know I am God. Cease striving. Stop trying to do all these things on your own. Know that I am God. Know that I've got this. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy our worship this week.